What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over what I think is the best assault rifle in Fortnite Chapter 4. So we have 3 assault rifles this season. I'm going to be going over each of them, explaining what I think they do best and where I think that each of them lie and which one I think I have the most success with this season. If you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful or informative, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and comment down below what your favorite assault rifle has been so far in Chapter 4. So I feel like there's going to be 2 types of players. People who use their assault rifle to get tags and early damage on opposing players, and then use mobility or something to close the gap and then get into a close range fight. So in that playstyle, you're kind of just using your assault rifle to soften up the opponent and get good early damage. And then there's also people who kind of view their AR as the main weapon, and they think they're going to get most of their kills throughout the course of the game with the assault rifle. They like playing back and just constantly getting kills with the assault rifle. They don't really like playing for close range as much. I'm definitely someone who finds myself more in that first camp. If you watch any of my gameplay, especially this season, I feel like 90% of fights kind of start with just opening AR tags. You hammer on the person, you get your early HP advantage from the AR tags, and then you close the gap, get the kill with the shotgun. That is how Fortnite has been for a very long time for a lot of players. Build mode, zero build, doesn't matter. That is how kind of the meta of Fortnite has been for a really long time. And one of the main reasons for this, especially in build mode, was because people could just put up walls at any point in time and stop you from shooting at them. So you had to be good at close range fighting, and you had to get in there and close the gap to actually get the kill. And even in zero build, last season or last chapter, and even this season, I kind of employ a very similar playstyle where I get early tags, shockwave onto the person, nimbus cloud onto the person, launch pad onto the person. This season we have the hammer onto the person. You just use your AR to get early damage. And for that type of playstyle, I feel like the red eye assault rifle is far and away the best choice. It has the highest damage, doesn't have the best fire rate, but it has a decent fire rate. It also does have a decent amount of recoil though, making it somewhat inconvenient to use. But I pretty much always tap fire this weapon. I rarely full auto it, and I think that is one direction where a lot of people might be going wrong when they complain about the red eye assault rifle's recoil. I think it's probably because they're just holding down the fire button and full autoing this weapon, but I pretty much always tap fire it, unless the person is within 20 meters or something. But more often than not, I'm tap firing this weapon. And on controller, you're going to want to strafe or move your character while you're shooting this weapon, because you get increased aim assist if you're moving your character while shooting. I know that sounds weird, but it's a thing in multiple different shooters. If you're strafing, it kind of increases your aim assist. And I think that is another area where a lot of people might be going wrong with the red eye, is they feel terrible using it because it does have less aim assist than something like the MK7 or the Striker Burst rifle did last chapter, but it still does have a fair amount if you're strafing. It does have pretty much no hipfire aim assist, which is inconvenient, but it's not that big of a deal because you likely weren't going to be using this up close anyways. This weapon hits for 30 or 40 to the body, depending on which rarity you have, and then 50 or 60 to the head, depending on what rarity you have, and somewhere in those ranges. And that's really, really good for tagging people and getting that early damage, like I said. And then you push them with the hammer afterwards. If you just think that you're only going to get kills with ARs, this might not be the best. But if you want to get a lot of damage in a very short amount of time and then use that damage to kind of create pressure in the fight, and then you transfer that pressure into a kill, this is the ideal weapon for that. And I feel like that is pretty much the ideal playstyle this season because of how insane the hammer is. We have mobility that recharges, and more often than not, I feel like if you're fighting someone decent, the game kind of becomes less about ARs and more about close range weapons. If you're fighting someone decent, they're not just going to sit there and let you shoot at them with the assault rifle for constantly. So I feel like the red eye is the best AR this chapter so far this season. It's also really good for tagging people off of cover because of that high damage. Like I said, if you have someone playing off of cover and they kind of peek a little bit, 1 or 2 shots can really inconvenience them. Whereas when we get to the other ARs, especially the last one, 1 or 2 shots really doesn't matter to them, and that kind of makes it harder for you to get in damage that would kind of force them to change how they want to play, or make it easier for you to push them. So I feel like the red eye is the best AR this season, and it's the best AR if you want to kind of play aggressive. If you want to get early tags and then push off it, I think the red eye is the best. The Scar is kind of in the middle of the two. I feel like the main value the Scar has just comes from versatility. It's kind of good at everything. It's not the best at anything, but it also doesn't have any main weakness. It has an okay fire rate. It has fine damage. The main thing I've seen people complaining about with this weapon is just the bloom. especially compared to the Hammer AR last season, because the Hammer AR didn't have very much bloom, so you could just full spray the Hammer AR all the time and it really wouldn't be that big of a deal. And that's one of the things I really didn't understand during Chapter 3 when we had so many people complaining and wanting the Scar back, when we had the Hammer AR, which I felt was just a much better Scar because it had less bloom, making it much more consistent. But with the Scar, you really need to be concerned about the bloom. You need to potentially tap fire at longer ranges or burst. You can't just full spray all the time, and I think that's where a lot of people are going wrong with this weapon, is because they're just full spraying all the time, and then they're confused on why they're not hitting shots, so they feel like the bloom is terrible. The skill in using this weapon kind of comes from managing your bloom and not making your reticle super big. You know, you need to keep your reticle sized appropriately for the range that you're fighting at. If you're fighting someone really close, their body is going to fill much more of your crosshair because it's going to be larger, so you can full spray in that fight. But if you have someone really far away, they're going to be a smaller target, so you're going to need to tap fire at those ranges to keep the reticle small and keep you hitting your shots. The main point of the Scar, I think, is just if you want to use this weapon as an AR and an SMG, that way you can carry other things like the bows, the RPG, if that ever comes back, bunkers, especially in zero build comp. I think you'll see a lot of players running like shotgun, Scar, and then bunker, heals, mobility. Or even if you like using the chug cannon, I feel like pump, Scar, chug cannon, mobility would kind of be like the ideal loadout for that. So the Scar kind of is just good if you want more room in your inventory for other items. And then the final assault rifle we have is going to be the TAC AR. You get this from the Tactical Armory Augment, and this has been very hyped by a lot of people, but I do not think this weapon is that good if you're fighting decent players. Kind of like I talked about with the Red Eye. If you're fighting someone decent, they're not just going to sit there and let you AR them. They're going to get behind cover, and the TAC AR isn't the best at like getting damage in on people behind cover because it hits for like in the high teens to like the 20s, depending on range. Like it's not a very hard hitting weapon. It's a weapon that you need your opponent to be exposed for a really long time to get any amount of damage with. And that's just not an ideal situation when you're playing against better players. Better players, I feel like, are going to be better at using cover. You're not going to get as much damage in on them in the small amount of time they're exposed. And then also with the hammer this season, pretty much everybody has a mobility. So if you catch somebody off in a bad situation and you start shooting them with the TAC AR, they're probably just going to hammer away, and the range on this TAC AR is not very good. So when they're hammering away, you're going to be hitting for less and less damage as they get away from you. So yeah, I feel like this weapon is super gassed. I think the main kind of value of this weapon is that it uses light ammo, so I think this will be a sought after weapon in zero build competitive. Since squads is a zero build competitive mode, being able to use light ammo for your assault rifle and then give your medium ammo away to one of your teammates, that definitely will have value, because getting enough loot for an entire squad in comp and having enough ammo for everybody with how much spraying goes on in zero build can be difficult. But for public matches, I don't think that's that big of a deal. This weapon can be good at like just straight up AR versus AR fights, but I feel like those don't happen very frequently anymore. This is one of those things where I feel like it really depends on the skill level of your lobbies. I could see this weapon being very good in low skill lobbies because more people are probably going to play slower and just like kind of stand there and let you AR them. But whenever I've used this weapon and like fought good players, because I did try this weapon a decent amount because it does get gassed by a lot of people, but whenever I fought good players, I just never really wanted this weapon. Like I never got kills with this weapon and felt like, wow, I wouldn't have been able to do that with the Red Eye. It just felt like more of an inconvenience to use this than anything else, or like a handicap more than anything else. It is fun to use for sure. It feels good to just like fry somebody with this and just see all the numbers popping up. And if you're someone who has ridiculous aim and you only hit headshots, it can kill somewhat fast. But I feel like this gun just requires so much more out of you. Like, you have to have pretty much perfect aim for this weapon to be usable. And if that person hammers away, even if you have perfect aim, it's probably not going to do the best. So I don't think the TAC AR is very good. I think it's okay. I think it's fun to use, but I do not think it is like the meta in Chapter 4 or anything like that. Being able to do 120 damage on somebody in 2 shots with the Red Eye and then push them off that, or being able to do a lot of damage to somebody playing a head glitch with the Red Eye and then push off that, I feel like is just much better. And from what I've played this chapter, I haven't been in any situations where like the Red Eye didn't do what the TAC AR would have done. You know, the Red Eye is a little, and they're both inconvenient to use in different ways, because the TAC AR, I feel like you need to have like perfect tracking and hit an insane amount of headshots. Whereas the Red Eye has a slow fire rate, which can be a deterrent to some. But if you have a playstyle more where you like getting tags on people and then pushing with mobility, the red eye is good. But if just playing off an AR entirely works in your lobbies, and maybe the tac AR can be good. But that's one of those things where like if a playstyle works against low skilled players, that's good. But as you do better and start to get harder lobbies, I feel like it just isn't that good anymore. But let me know down in the comments below what your favorite AR is in Chapter 4. That's just my thoughts on it. I know there's a lot of people who love the tac AR, but that gun is just... It's never felt exceptional to me. Even when it was in the game initially in Chapter 1, I was never really that fond of it. I would much prefer like the harder hitting assault rifles that maybe were a little more difficult to use in other ways, but at least they had the damage. But let me know what you like down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, found it helpful, informative, give it a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.